The flicker of recognition crosses your face, though you may not articulate it. You've felt this bind before, a gnawing sensation that persists long after the immediate conflict. It's the phantom limb of a debt you never incurred, yet somehow feel compelled to repay. This isn't coincidence. It's not a mere misunderstanding. This is the false guilt loop, a silent subroutine injected into your cognitive architecture designed to hijack your internal moral compass. It operates by exploiting your fundamental need for ethical coherence. You believe in fairness, in right and wrong. They leverage that belief, turning it into a weapon. The loop activates when a perceived transgression, often manufactured or grossly exaggerated, is attributed to you. It doesn't have to be true, it only has to land. A subtle sigh, a wounded glance, a carefully chosen phrase that implies you're failing. The installer of this loop doesn't accuse directly. They imply, they mirror pain, they create an emotional vacuum you feel obligated to fill. Your system, designed for honest interaction, tries to reconcile the discrepancy. Why do I feel bad if I did nothing wrong? This internal conflict creates a vulnerability. You begin to search for the cause within yourself, accepting the premise of your guilt before objective analysis even begins. This is the critical breach. Once you accept the input, the loop begins to cycle. Each attempt to clarify, to defend, only tightens the constraint. The cost is clear. This loop drains your decision-making power, redirects your resources, and ensures your compliance without explicit command. You become a self-policing entity driven by a manufactured shame. This isn't about an apology, it's about control. And the next stage, weaponized silence, ensures that control continues, unchecked and undeniable. And real quick, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos. Now let's keep going. Weaponized silence arrives not as an absence, but as a presence. A crushing weight designed to fill the void left by anticipated communication. You have spoken, you have offered, you have sought resolution, and in return, there is nothing, an unnerving stillness where dialogue should exist. This isn't passive aggression. This is an active, calculated refusal to engage, specifically calibrated to exploit your inherent need for feedback and closure. Your mind, a pattern-seeking engine, registers this absence as a significant anomaly. It triggers an internal alarm. The silence is not perceived as neutral. It is interpreted as judgment, disapproval, or even abandonment. This tactical void creates an immense pressure vacuum, drawing you in, forcing you to speculate, to fill the silence with your own anxieties and fears. It's a psychological blackout, orchestrated to make you confront an invisible threat. The operative employing this tactic understands that humans are social creatures, hardwired for connection and validation. The abrupt withdrawal of these essential elements creates a powerful, primal discomfort. You begin to question your own perceptions, your actions, your very worthiness of a response. The silence corrodes your internal certainty, forcing you to seek external validation, even from the very source inflicting the pain. This is a cold reset of your behavioral parameters. The function of weaponized silence is twofold: to punish perceived transgressions and to reassert dominance. It forces you to initiate contact, to apologize, to offer concessions, simply to break the unbearable quiet. You are engineered to chase the return of their presence, even at your own expense. But this is merely a prelude. The next protocol, neuroemotional syncing, locks in deeper, subtler forms of control. Neuroemotional syncing is the sophisticated phase where your internal states are not just influenced, but actively mirrored and modulated. This isn't about simple empathy. It's about a precise, almost surgical, entrainment of your emotional landscape to theirs. They observe your reactions, catalog your tells, and then subtly reflect them back with slight amplifications or reductions, creating a resonant frequency that bypasses conscious thought. The operative becomes a physiological echo, a chameleon adapting to your internal barometer. A slight shift in your posture, a fleeting expression of doubt, a subtle increase in your vocal cadence, all are registered and then subtly reenacted. This creates a powerful, subconscious sense of kinship, of being understood at a profound, almost telepathic level. Your guard, designed to protect against overt threats, is systematically lowered because your primitive brain perceives deep connection, not manipulation. This synchronization exploits your mirror neurons, the very biological hardware responsible for empathy and social bonding. When they subtly mimic your distress, your comfort, your excitement, your brain interprets this as alignment, as proof of shared experience. You feel an inexplicable rapport, a profound connection, often with someone who is, in reality, orchestrating your internal experience. It's like a neural backdoor, allowing them to install new emotional directives. The true danger lies in the gradual, almost imperceptible shift. Once your emotional state is synchronized, they can subtly lead you. A shift in their tone, a manufactured sigh, a sudden expression of concern, these then become cues that your mirrored self is primed to adopt. You're not being told what to feel, you're gently guided there, your own neurobiology co-opted. This foundation of pseudo-connection becomes the perfect platform for the flood of compliance. The flood of compliance is not a gentle deluge, but a tsunami of demands, unspoken expectations, and rapid-fire requests designed to overwhelm your cognitive firewalls. It operates on the principle of sheer volume, delivered with such speed and apparent urgency that your system has no time for critical processing. This isn't about persuasion, it's about conditioning you to immediate, unthinking assent. Each minor request, each urgent-sounding plea, each subtly implied favor arrives in quick succession. Your default setting, your intrinsic desire to be helpful or agreeable, is barraged relentlessly. The sheer quantity prevents you from evaluating individual items as threats. Each one seems too small to resist, too inconsequential to deny. So you comply, piece by piece, request by request, until suddenly you are submerged, your boundaries completely eroded. This tactic leverages your mental fatigue. Decision-making is a finite resource. When faced with a relentless stream of inputs demanding a yes or no, your system defaults to the path of least resistance, which is typically compliance. You become a reactive rather than a proactive agent, constantly responding to their initiatives, never initiating your own. The operative understands that a tired mind is a compliant mind. The insidious nature of the flood is that it doesn't feel like coercion. It feels like you are simply being responsive, cooperative, a good person. But in reality, your agency has been systematically dismantled, decision by decision, until your will to resist is completely submerged. This establishes a baseline of obedience, a preconditioned state for when triangulation and control mirrors are deployed. Triangulation and control mirrors operate by injecting third-party elements into your two-person dynamic, not to foster understanding, but to fracture your sense of reality and self-worth. This technique uses external entities, real or imagined, as strategic reflections designed to distort your perception of yourself and your position within the relationship. It's a fundamental architectural attack on your social navigation system. The mirror comes in many forms: a fabricated comparison, a rumored opinion, an invoked authority. So-and-so thinks you're being unreasonable. Everyone I talk to agrees with my side. You know, my ex never challenged me like this. These statements are not about external validation for them. They are about external invalidation for you. They create a perceived audience, a panel of invisible judges whose silent verdict you are now subjected to. Your internal processing, designed to weigh social cues and seek harmony, struggles with these artificial reflections. You begin to see yourself through their distorted lens, wondering if the reflection, the third party's supposed view, is accurate. This doubt systemically erodes your confidence, making you more susceptible to their influence. It's a classic divide and conquer, but the division happens within your own mind. Control mirrors are particularly potent because they create a synthetic competitor. You are now fighting not just against them, but against the implied judgment of these phantom figures. Your focus shifts from assessing the core issue to defending your image in the eyes of a manipulated public. This diversion of resources is crucial, priming you for the next phase, guilt-laced generosity, where every gift becomes a leash. Guilt-laced generosity appears as altruism, a benevolent act, but it is a meticulously crafted Trojan horse carrying a payload of future obligation. This isn't a simple gift. It's a strategic investment designed to create an inescapable, unquantifiable debt. The operative understands that true generosity empowers, but this form of generosity disempowers, binding you with strings made of their supposed selflessness. The gift might be a significant favor, an extravagant item, a grand gesture of support, but it is always delivered with a subtle, almost imperceptible implication of sacrifice on their part. A sigh, a mention of how difficult it was, a comment about the cost or the time invested. These aren't gratitude cues, they are markers for a future invoice. The act, seemingly pure, is tainted by the unspoken expectation of repayment, not in kind, but in compliance. Your intrinsic need to reciprocate, to balance the scales, is the target. They exploit this social contract, inflating the value of their contribution while subtly diminishing yours. You begin to feel an increasing burden, an undefined weight. This isn't a debt that can be paid off with a simple thank you or a return favor. It's an open-ended credit line of obligation, constantly accruing interest in the form of your future concessions and agreements. The insidious nature lies in its defense against accusation. How can you say, "I manipulate you? Look at all I've done"? This makes it nearly impossible to articulate the violation without appearing ungrateful or selfish. You are trapped. This manufactured indebtedness sets the stage for the apology extraction protocol, where your remorse becomes their weapon. The apology extraction protocol is not about genuine reconciliation. It is a meticulous system for harvesting your admission of guilt, regardless of your culpability. It functions as a powerful lever designed to extract concessions, shift blame, and re-establish their moral superiority. This process is less about resolving conflict and more about redefining reality in their favor, inscribing your presumed wrongdoings into the operational log. The protocol begins with a persistent, often subtle reintroduction of the offense. It could be a pained glance, a pointed silence, or a vague complaint about past harms. The details remain hazy, the accusations indirect, forcing you to fill in the blanks with your own anxieties. They create a psychological void, a feeling of unease that only your apology can seemingly alleviate. Your natural inclination to restore harmony becomes your undoing. Your system, detecting unresolved conflict and internalizing responsibility, begins to generate distress signals. You feel compelled to offer an apology, even for actions you don't fully comprehend or believe you committed. The act of saying, "I'm sorry," becomes the only apparent path to peace, a desperate attempt to shut down the discomfort. They don't want understanding, they want submission. Once extracted, the apology is not a moment of closure. It is immediately weaponized. It validates their position, cements your perceived fault, and becomes concrete evidence in their internal log of your unreliability. This admission is now a tool, a proof of weakness, to be deployed in future interactions. The next stage, tactical emotional blackouts, then weaponizes their absence of feeling to further disorient you. Tactical emotional blackouts are not a genuine lack of feeling. They are a calculated withdrawal of emotional response, a deliberate blanking of their internal screen calibrated to disorient and invalidate your experience. When you express distress, frustration, or anger, they meet it with an unnerving, almost flat effect. This isn't indifference. It's a precise operational shutdown designed to make your emotions feel irrelevant. Your natural expectation is that your expressions will elicit a corresponding emotional resonance. When met with a vacant stare, a neutral tone, or even a dismissive shrug, your internal alarm system goes off. Your mind struggles to process this anomaly. It's like shouting into a void and hearing no echo. This absence of mirroring or responsiveness causes your own emotional register to fluctuate wildly, seeking a point of connection that is deliberately denied. This tactic forces you to double down, to escalate your emotional output in an attempt to elicit any reaction. You become louder, more forceful, more desperate, but the blackout remains. This sustained lack of response invalidates your feelings, making you question the legitimacy of your own emotional state. They project an image of calm superiority, while you feel yourself spiraling into perceived irrationality. It's a total sensory deprivation for emotional input. The objective is to drain your emotional reserves, leaving you exhausted and self-doubting. Your passionate pleas are met with a cold, analytical gaze, forcing you to confront the terrifying possibility that your emotions don't matter. This prepares you for the next phase, delayed response decoding, where their slowness becomes a weapon. Delayed response decoding translates their protracted silences and slow reactions into a powerful form of strategic ambiguity, leaving you in a perpetual state of anticipatory distress. This isn't forgetfulness or a busy schedule. It's a deliberate withholding of information or acknowledgement designed to maintain psychological control by keeping you suspended in uncertainty. You send a message, ask a question, express a need. The response does not arrive, not immediately, not predictably. There is a gulf of time, a deliberate pause. During this interval, your mind, hardwired to seek completion and resolution, begins to loop. You revisit your initial input, re-examine its wording, question its intent. Was it too strong, too weak? Was it even received? The silence becomes a breeding ground for self-doubt and anxious rumination. This tactic forces you into a state of heightened alert, constantly monitoring for their signal. You become conditioned to a delayed gratification system where their eventual response, whenever it arrives, is imbued with disproportionate significance. Your normal internal clock is fractured, adjusted to their arbitrary timing. They are not simply answering, they are granting access, a controlled release of information to a system they have already conditioned to wait. The cost is immense. Your focus shifts from your own objectives to deciphering their unpredictable patterns. You lose control of your own timing, constantly waiting on their operational cues. This systematic imposition of delay ensures you remain reactive, never truly autonomous. This strategic erosion of your temporal control sets the stage for cognitive reframing under fire, where your perspective is the next target. Cognitive reframing under fire is a high-pressure ideological maneuver designed to dismantle your established narratives and replace them with their preferred interpretations. This is not open debate. It's an intense, rapid-fire assault on your framing, delivered when your defenses are already compromised, forcing you to adopt their distorted lens. They will seize upon your words, your actions, even your internal thoughts, and immediately recontextualize them in a negative, self-serving light. Your concern becomes nagging, your boundary becomes control, your independence becomes selfishness. This is executed with speed and conviction, leaving you little room to defend the original meaning. The reframing is presented as undeniable truth, not a competing perspective. The process exploits your cognitive load. Under stress, your ability to critically analyze information diminishes. When bombarded with rapid-fire negative reinterpretations, your mind struggles to maintain its original framework. You begin to question your own memories, your own intentions, even your own sanity. They are not merely disagreeing with you, they are aiming to rewrite your internal script, sentence by sentence. This creates a pervasive sense of self-doubt. You start to see yourself and the situation through eyes that are not your own. Your internal map of reality becomes fragmented, riddled with their inserted distortions. This breakdown in your foundational understanding of self and situation is crucial before the next phase, dissociative disruption. Dissociative disruption is a calculated system designed to splinter your sense of continuity, separating you from your own emotional responses and personal history. It's an internal attack, not against your behavior, but against the integrity of your self-perception. They aim to make you a stranger to your own experiences. This is often achieved through gaslighting at an accelerated, tactical level. They deny your memories that never happened, invalidate your feelings, you're overreacting, or contradict your core truths. That's not who you are. These constant, contradictory inputs create a schism between your internal lived experience and the reality they are aggressively presenting. Your mind, struggling to reconcile these two opposing narratives, begins to compartmentalize or discard its own data. The effect is a profound sense of unreality. You feel disconnected from your own emotions, your own past actions, even your own identity. You observe yourself as if from a distance, unsure of the validity of your feelings or memories. This disassociation is not accidental. It's a deliberate fracturing of your psychological architecture, making you pliable and susceptible to external programming. The cost is your secure sense of self. When you are disconnected from your own internal compass, you become reliant on external definitions, specifically theirs. Your ability to trust your own judgment is severely compromised, leaving you vulnerable to their directives. This fundamental breakdown sets the stage for identity destabilization tactics, the most direct assault on who you believe yourself to be. Identity destabilization tactics are not about simply changing your mind. They are about systematically eroding your core sense of self, your values, your competence, and your role in the world. This is a sustained, multi-pronged attack designed to strip away your internal anchors, leaving you adrift and dependent on their definition of who you are. They will relentlessly target your strengths, reframing them as weaknesses. Your compassion becomes naivete, your intelligence becomes pedantry, your resilience becomes stubbornness. Each attempt to assert a positive self-attribute is met with a devaluing counter-narrative, systematically chipping away at your self-esteem and internal validation. This also involves isolating you from external sources of identity validation. They might subtly undermine your relationships, sow doubt about your competence in your career, or make you question your place in social groups. The objective is to sever ties to any external mirrors that reflect a positive image of yourself, leaving only their distorted reflection. You begin to internally adopt their negative labels. Your self-doubt morphs into self-condemnation. The once clear image of yourself becomes fragmented, blurred, and then replaced with their imposed negative caricature. This leaves you operating from a compromised psychological state, ready for dominance fragmentation, where your power is systematically diffused. Dominance fragmentation is the strategic dismemberment of your authority, agency, and influence within any given sphere, ensuring that any nascent power you attempt to wield is immediately diffused or redirected. This is not about outright suppression. It's about making your attempts at control feel weak, ineffective, and ultimately pointless. They achieve this by subtly undermining your decisions, circumventing your directives, or creating convoluted processes that drain your energy. For every step you take to assert control, they introduce 5 new obstacles or delays. Your attempts to lead are met with passive resistance, confusion, or a sudden, dramatic shift in focus that renders your efforts irrelevant. The goal is to induce learned helplessness. You begin to anticipate that any attempt to exert control will be met with disproportionate resistance or simply fizzle out, leading to inaction. Your confidence wanes, your initiative dwindles. You stop trying to lead, to decide, to influence. Your innate drive to autonomy is short-circuited. This creates a vacuum that they are more than ready to fill. Your fragmented dominance consolidates their own, often without them needing to explicitly command. You voluntarily cede ground, relinquishing power you convinced yourself you never truly had. This prepares you for the final breach, empathic amnesia and final immunity. Empathic amnesia and final immunity marks the culminating phase where they systematically erase any past instances of your emotional pain or their responsibility, establishing an operational state of total psychological impunity. This is not selective memory, it's a deliberate, constructed oblivion to your suffering, ensuring they remain untouched by the consequences of their actions. When confronted with historical instances of their manipulation, your pain, or their clear transgressions, they exhibit a complete lack of recall or dismiss it as your interpretation, old news, or something you imagined. There is no acknowledgement, no apology, no residual empathy. Your appeals to shared history or emotional impact are met with a vacant stare, as if speaking to a brick wall. This creates an unassailable firewall around their psyche. Your emotional suffering, which would normally trigger an empathetic response or at least a negotiation in a healthy dynamic, simply bounces off them. They have installed a psychological override that renders them immune to your pain, effectively nullifying your most powerful leverage. Your emotional reality. The result is your complete isolation in your own suffering. You are left holding the weight of shared history and emotional trauma while they operate with a clean slate, unburdened by guilt or accountability. This final immunity is their ultimate weapon, allowing them to perpetuate the cycle without consequence, ensuring the system remains unbroken and the operative remains uncompromised. Now make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the Dark Psyche world and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. We'll see you in the next one.